Boy, oh boy, Ellen, I love you.
Sean Diddy Combs has always been surrounded by celebrity friends, and he's been on television talk shows for sure, but some of his most famous appearances have been on Ellen Degeneres' show. We are analyzing the music mogul and now indicted defendant's ties to yet another Hollywood star. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Whether you listened to rap and hip-hop in the 90s or the early 2000s or not, it was hard to miss Diddy or Puffy. Honestly, kind of hard to keep track of whatever he was calling himself at any given time, but he was everywhere. Saturday Night Live, NBC, all that, on Nickelodeon, and just about every late-night show you could think of. And now that Sean Diddy Combs has been indicted by a grand jury on federal charges, those appearances are being looked at in a whole new way. And more specifically, the people he was around or the people he had been talking to are also being looked at too. So federal prosecutors within the Southern District of New York say that Combs was the leader of a criminal enterprise that was focused on making his sexual fantasies a reality. They allege that Combs used intimidation, violence, drugs, bribery, and more to get his way. And the prosecutors' claims seemingly match the accusations made by Cassandra Ventura, Cassie, Combs' on-again, off-again girlfriend, who filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against him last year that he settled the very next day. And that started the ball rolling with a number of different lawsuits, the raids, the indictment, the arrest. Now, Ventura had claimed that Combs would force her to participate in what were called FOs, or freak-offs. These were long sex sessions where Combs would allegedly hire male sex escorts to have sex with Ventura on camera. She says that they were constantly given drugs to keep them compliant. Combs would sometimes participate and sometimes just watch while he pleasured himself. According to prosecutors, these freak-offs were happening even after Combs allegedly knew he was under investigation by federal authorities. His homes in Miami and Los Angeles, they were raided in March of this year by Homeland Security investigators. They took boxes full of evidence away, especially electronics, computers, tablets, phones, surveillance video, more. The government reportedly has hours and hours of video footage. And despite that, prosecutors allege that, quote, since at least in or about January 2024, when the defendant was unquestionably aware of the criminal investigation, the evidence shows that he is engaged in multiple freak-offs, some involving the interstate transportation of individuals to participate, has continued to use narcotics, and has contacted multiple witnesses. This is according to the government's letter where they were advocating against Combs getting bail. Now, Combs is charged with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, transportation to engage in prostitution. He's currently in the Metropolitan Detention Center out in Brooklyn, New York. And Combs and his attorneys have ardently denied any wrongdoing. In fact, lead defense counsel Mark Agnifilo says that Combs looks forward to clearing his name in court. But just because Combs is now behind bars doesn't mean that this investigation is over. No, the prosecution says it has talked to dozens of witnesses. Their identities thus far are being kept close to the vest. Many have speculated that A-list celebrities who have spent time with Combs over the years could be getting subpoenas even as we speak. And one of the biggest names now getting extra scrutiny is Ellen Degeneres. So between 2006 and 2022, Combs appeared as a guest on Degeneres' daytime talk show more than a dozen times.
17 times! I've been on the show 17 times!
And during his first appearance in 2006, Combs wasn't really shy about sharing private details.
I'm definitely a nighttime person.
What time do you stay up till?
I stay up till like maybe 6 in the morning. I'm back up at like 10:30, 11.
6 in the morning? What do you do every night till 6 in the morning? You don't go to clubs every night.
No, I make love a lot. And,
That's
Ellen,
my favorite answer ever.
Hey, by the way, I got to say thank you so much for coming to us for our continued Sean Combs coverage. We're going to make sure to keep on following these updates, analyzing the different angles for you. And the reason we're able to do this is because of not only the incredible support that we get from you guys, but also from our amazing sponsors. And I want to call out one in particular right now, Upside. So Upside's awesome. Upside is a free app that helps you get cash back when you buy gas and groceries. So easy to use. This is real cash back, by the way. Money that appears in your Upside app that you can transfer straight into your bank account. Give you an example. I used Upside to find a gas station. I claimed an offer, paid with my credit card at the pump. I followed the steps on the app. I got cash back. It is so simple to use. You can use it at all different kinds of places, restaurants, convenience stores. So to find out how much you could earn with Upside, click the link in the description to download Upside or scan the QR code on screen and use our promo code Sidebar and you'll get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Hope you can check it out. Many clips of his guest spots have resurfaced recently, including discussions between Combs and Ellen about his infamous parties.
It'll go from like 9:30 to like maybe 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And then, we have the top 2 floors of the hotel.
And then it will carry on there?
Yeah. Then No, I mean the after party.
No, I know about them.
And years later, Combs said he wanted to attend one of Ellen's parties.
I have to arrive fashionably late.
All right. Not too late, though.
Not too late?
Not too late, please.
What time would you like me there?
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
But not too late. Because, once you get there, the party really starts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I got you. I promise you I'm not going to let you down on this big one.
All right,
For
good.
real.
Good.
Your shoes, your feet are going to have blisters. You're going to be dancing so hard.
I can't wait.
Now, the two seem to kind of dance around the apparently open secret that Combs' parties were beyond wild, with reports of drugs and multiple participants and more. And as the allegations against Combs have mounted, many have called his interviews with Ellen now creepy.
So no money on you?
I mean, it's just a little bit of money on me.
Oh, you do have money on you. Lord, have mercy. Where are you going after this? It's all 20s. Where are you going after this? What are you doing?
You know we doing what we plan to do, girl.
But I have to be clear about something. There is a difference between a wild party and something that is criminal, okay? There's a difference between having a great time and something that's an illegal freak-off. And having said that, remember when I told you about those freak-offs, right? Cassandra Ventura, as well as prosecutors, said in legal filings that people forced to participate would often have to get IV drips to recover from exhaustion and prolonged drug use. Well, in 2016, Combs appeared on stage with blue gauze around his arm and explained that he was just getting an IV drip backstage. He'd apparently arrived at the studio with it.
They said that I would have to stay. I said, no, I have to go. I said I could pull that out myself. So I walk in, and I'm talking to Ellen. I have the IV, and then the blood is going down. I start to panic. I go into the bathroom, and I pulled it out myself, and I just made it here, and I love you.
I love you, too.
So, of course, the natural question is, what was going on right before this taping? And to be very, very clear about something, Ellen Degeneres has not been accused of anything. She is not listed in any one of the government's filings. The only reason we are talking about this now is because we are going back and looking at these old interviews, looking at these old comments, looking at these old interactions to see if potentially they could play a role in his criminal case. So with that in mind, let's move forward. Well, to talk more about this, to talk more about Ellen DeGeneres' apparent connection to this, possible connection, I want to bring in Eric Todisco, who's an entertainment reporter at the New York Post. Eric, thanks so much for coming on. From your perspective, I've interviewed a lot of attorneys about this, a lot of members of law enforcement. As somebody who is very well aware of the feeling of what's happening in the entertainment industry, what has been your reaction to seeing this indictment and the responses from celebrities?
Thank you for having me, Jesse. You normally want to use the word shocking for all of these allegations and, alleged crimes that Diddy has committed. But this is something that there's been rumblings of for a long time. And, I think the floodgates truly opened once the Cassie video came out earlier this year. That was shocking for many, many people to see. Disturbing, certainly. And even before that, the raids were going on. And so everything was being leveled against him. And I think people knew that something like this was coming. We didn't know exactly when this would happen, in September when he was arrested in New York City. But we sensed that something like this would be going down in a big, big way. And it was abundantly clear that the prosecution was not going to arrest him until they had a good amount of evidence, which they now do, to certainly put him behind bars and keep him there.
Let me ask you a question before I even get into the Ellen DeGeneres aspect. If the case were dropped tomorrow, let's say prosecutors said, you know what, we had faulty evidence, we're not going to pursue it anymore. Do you think Combs would ever have a career again in the entertainment industry? Could he ever revive his reputation? Even, by the way, even if this goes to trial and he's acquitted, found not guilty, do you think that he could ever have a career again?
I don't think so. We certainly live in the world of cancel culture, and some people recover from that after years of kind of hiding away and making their, noted apologies on Instagram or wherever it comes about nowadays. But this is so severe and so serious and disturbing, like I said before, that I can't imagine he recovers from this. I mean, more and more witnesses, I assume, are going to come forward, more than we even realize, that are being kept a secret for now, just for the sake of, their identity. But I cannot imagine that this man ever recovers from all of the many, many extremely frightening allegations that have been leveled against him. And I do believe that even if he comes out of this not going to jail or being found, quote unquote, not guilty, he will be guilty in the eyes of public opinion, and that is damaging for his career alone. So I'd be shocked if some type of Diddy come back.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, even before the arrest and indictment, just with the civil lawsuits, it was taking such a hit on his businesses and his career. Talking about the celebrity aspect, we've done other episodes of Sidebar about the Justin Bieber connection, the Usher connection. What about Ellen stands out now? Why are people talking about her?
Sure. So, I mean, of course, Ellen, the many, many years she had her show, had countless celebrities on, the most famous people that, are living today, Diddy being one of them. And throughout his many appearances, there were talks about his parties, which is worth pointing out was a norm for celebrities. I mean, there's been resurfaced clips from Keeping Up with the Kardashians of Khloe, Kris, etc., talking about Diddy's parties. Ellen has had Diddy on, and they have discussed his party, specifically a clip from February 2018 that recently resurfaced following his arrest, where she was kind of demanding, like, oh, come to my party. It doesn't start until you get there. Don't be late. Don't be late. Of course, reading a headline speaks differently with Ellen because she is a comedian. So the way she says things is very in a joking manner. However, you see it through a different lens once you're watching it, now knowing the allegations. But as you said in your intro, there is an important distinction between these alleged freak-off parties that are involved in the prosecution, what he's being charged with, and these many celebrity parties that, he famously introduced, the white party that became kind of a pop culture thing that many, many celebrities have attended. So there is an important distinction between those two things. And it's not a crime to go to a party being hosted by him, assuming that these celebrities, Ellen, Kardashians, etc., included, weren't witnesses to the alleged crimes that went down there. But that remains to be seen if these people were involved in any aspect.
Yeah, that's incredibly well said. And I think that's an important distinction. Having said that, when you look back, there was a clip of, again, he's on Ellen, and she makes reference to, I believe, an after party. And she's like, I've heard about your after parties. Again, could that just be a wild after party that's filled with music and it goes late? Maybe there's drug use. Maybe there's people are drinking a lot. Maybe there's even group sex, but it's not coerced sexual performances that are filmed and prostitutes being involved. But having said that, that clip, again, I've seen a lot on social media, people saying, well, what does she mean by these after parties? Or what did she know? Was there anything from her interviews with him where it gave you a characteristic of they might be referring to a freak off?
I think it reinforced the fact that most celebrities, especially the ones that were going to these parties, knew, like, there was a lot of wild sex happening there. There was probably drugs going on. People were potentially cheating on their partners there. But again, we don't know that these celebrities were aware of the crimes that are being said in these allegations involving the freak-off parties at these huge parties that Diddy would throw. They would probably know that these kind of crazy things were going on, but the freak-off stuff is a totally other factor that we're not sure that they were aware of. But I think it was just a known fact in Hollywood. Like, yeah, Diddy hosts the big parties. Diddy hosts the crazy parties. That was just a known thing. And unfortunately, 5, 6, 7, 10 plus years ago, pre-cancel culture world, people thought of things differently. Now you have to be extra careful. And I'm sure that there's many celebrities kind of shaking in their boots, wondering, like, what else did I say that I don't even remember? What could end up in a document that I was at a party where this horrible situation went down with somebody? I think a lot of people are concerned, but that remains to be seen if anyone's going to be called to, a subpoena, or if they were a potential witness to an extremely difficult crime.
Let me ask you something. Freak off. That term. First time I heard it was Cassandra Ventura's lawsuit. For people who hadn't been following it closely, maybe the first time they heard it was last month when he was indicted with respect to these freak offs. Was freak off a term that had been in the industry? Had people known about that term? Because, again, I think one of the defenses from a legal point of view is Combs could come back and say, yeah, I had freak offs. I called them a freak off, but there was nothing illegal going on. It was consensual. There was no prostitution. But I'm just curious, was that term amplified in the industry at all? Did anybody know about it?
I don't think that term was ever really used, and I don't think it was circulating around in any way, amongst the talk of his many parties that he's had. In these resurfaced clips of, as we said before, about Ellen, the Kardashians, etc., that term was never brought up by him to them or the celebrities to Diddy. So that make that term very distinct and very damning, because it's clear that it has to do specifically with the crimes versus just these quote unquote fun parties that he was having. And so the freak off term, I think, does not look good for him, because it's specifically towards these crimes, these alleged crimes that were committed, versus just these parties that he was having with all these celebrities, because that term was never thrown out there when it came to the white party, etc., where he may have had having big parties and there was crazy stuff going on, but if crimes weren't committed, then a crime wasn't committed. And so it doesn't seem like that freak off term was ruminating around the time of those parties. It seems very specific towards these alleged crimes.
Eric, do you know if Ellen Degeneres had ever really attended any of Sean Combs' events or parties? Were there photographs of her there?
There have not been, and a lot of photographs are starting to resurface. Jay-Z and Beyonce have been, Kardashians have been. Usher is, has a long history with Diddy, so there has not been photographic evidence of Ellen being there. Ellen also was known to, have parties. She, of course, has many, many celebrity friends, and there is no evidence that they have ever partied together, at least in a photograph. But, one can assume, just based on the way that these Hollywood people cross paths, that they have partied together. But again, there's no pictures, there's no clear crimes committed. So Ellen isn't as, stamped onto the situation as some people may think.
Has she said anything since the indictment or arrest? Has she said anything since all the controversy surrounding Sean Combs started last year?
She has not. And it is interesting that this is happening at a time where Ellen, as of course, there was many, many allegations against her and her show and her producers. Ex-staff said pretty terrible things about what was allegedly going on behind the scenes on the Ellen Degeneres show, which was looked at as this happy, beautiful, life-changing show. So that all went down several years ago. As we know, the show ended a couple of years closer to now, and she has been so under the radar up until recently, when she released a Netflix special. She's kind of calling it towards the end of her career. She's saying this is kind of like her last hurrah. She did address being quote unquote canceled in the special, and she has been on a little bit of a comedy tour the past year. But she has been laying very, very, very low over the past couple of years, which is kind of ironic that this is all resurfacing. She has not spoken out about Diddy. I can't imagine she would. I can't imagine most of these celebrities will. People that have been associated with him, such as Usher, Jennifer Lopez, Justin Bieber, of course. I can't imagine any of these people will speak up, A, because they could have been involved in something, and B, in the case of Justin Bieber, potentially there could have been instances where some of these celebrities were victims in some aspect. So I can't imagine any of these celebrities are going to speak up. And as of now, Ellen hasn't, and I don't see her doing so.
This is an impossible question, but I'm going to ask it and finish the conversation with this. Any rumblings that Ellen is a part of this case in terms of, has she received a subpoena? Has she been questioned at all? Do you know if she's met with investigators? I know this is an impossible question because we probably won't know, but sometimes you hear rumblings about things. Anything to indicate that in any which way?
There's no rumblings in terms of that she's been subpoenaed or is going to. Now, I think the interesting thing with this case is I think a lot of pop culture obsessed people that aren't as knowledgeable as the legalities of it all are kind of wondering and waiting, like, oh, which celebrities are going to be, cited in documents, who's going to be subpoenaed, again, Ellen, Jennifer Lopez, Justin Bieber, all these people that have been associated with him over the years. People are waiting for the hammer to drop, so to speak. But, prosecutors are, of course, more concerned with the extreme allegations that are being leveled against, that they're leveling against Diddy. And so if there's no clear evidence that these celebrities were involved or witnesses to these crimes, then I just think that they're going to be off scot-free. But now if celebrities does start getting roped into it, even if they haven't committed a crime, I think that that's certainly concerning for their career, because we live in the world of public opinion. And so if a J-Lo, if an Ellen is cited in a document, is called to testify, that's going to look bad for them, because they are going to be personally associated with Diddy and his crimes, even if they were involved in those specific crimes. But as of now, there's no reason to believe that any of these celebrities have been subpoenaed. Only time will tell. Obviously, as you mentioned before, the prosecution is still going through this investigation and seeing what else they have and what more they probably already have that we're unaware of. But it would not be shocking if prosecutors want to talk to some of these celebrities that attended the parties, even if these parties weren't the freak-offs, just to get an idea of what they witnessed.
And they might not even be called as witnesses, and we might not even know that they spoke with investigators. But you made a really good point, and it is eerily similar in terms of references that are made in the Jeffrey Epstein case. People, high-profile people who weren't accused of wrongdoing but were in that orbit. There was a cloud put over them as well. Eric Todisco from the New York Post, really, really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. Speak to you next time.